All right, welcome back to the Buck Sexton Show. Right before we played a clip for you of Leon Panetta there saying that he was concerned that in this whistleblower process that there would be politicization, that they would politicize this process, and that whistleblower protections exist so that somebody can bring a crime to light. What's the crime? And let's step back, which they still haven't told me. What is the crime exactly? There is no crime. The President of the United States can ask a foreign counterpart to investigate anybody the heck he wants to. He can do that. If you want to make a case that that's an abuse of power, that's a political argument. There's no crime. He's not going to prison for it. There's no violation of statute. And think about what that would mean, by the way. What if Joe Biden had, in fact, accepted, on behalf of his son, bags full of cash? I'm not saying he did this, but you can't say, hey, can you guys get an answer as to whether this happened for me? Oh, no, abuse of power. You're going to prison now, Mr. President. Well, that's a cool immunity that Joe Biden would have because he's a Democrat candidate for office. Now, I guess nobody in the executive branch is allowed to investigate him, which is weird because the executive branch spent over 2 years investigating Donald Trump on lies put together by the DNC and a bunch of foreigners using the media's help. So, oh, right, we've established this before. Democrats can investigate anyone they want for as long as they want on as flimsy a pretext as they want. Republicans can't investigate anybody that the Democrats like. That's not allowed. That's abuse of power. No. But for Panetta to say that this thing would be politicized, I mean, is he a moron? Of course it's political. The whole thing is political. It's an impeachment proceeding. You know all the people sitting in the room that are talking to the various witnesses around this thing? They're called politicians because they work in politics. Oh, it's not politicized, this. The whistleblower's motives are pure. Right, the whistleblower that coordinated Adam Schiff beforehand. Folks, it's just so troubling. This is why you have such a polarized media climate and political climate in this country, because they're really just hoping that they can be loud enough voices that appeal to stupid enough people that they'll get their way in the end. That's it. That's really the game plan. Because no honest and rational person could see what they're doing and say, you know what, this seems fair to me. Yeah, this seems about right. It's not clear. It's not the case that anyone with decent judgment would see that after the whole ridiculousness of, oh, we're going to remove Trump for Russia collusion. That didn't happen. We're going to remove Trump for fighting back against Russia collusion nonsense and say that that's obstruction. And now you have Panetta saying, oh, maybe we should remove Trump. Another article of impeachment should be fighting back against the whistleblower, a new attempt to remove Trump. I mean, how many times can they go through this? They told us, the Washington Post told us, the libs told us right after Trump won they were going to impeach him. They let us know exactly who they are and what they're trying to do. This is why I sit around and I say, no, sorry. Not going to play the game. Not going to say, oh, well, maybe all of a sudden these really dishonest, nasty people with no principles or morals, maybe in the media, maybe they've actually decided to be fair about this. And the Democrats, yeah, I really trust Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi. Look, it's not just that I disagree with them on policy. I don't think they're ethical people. I don't think that they have much of a moral compass at all. At all. And they lie to people about important things. Not about little things, about important things. That's what I think about this. I wanted to follow up on some other stories from yesterday that I talked to you about. Just the Project Veritas clip, which we played for you, which if you haven't, please go back and listen to yesterday's show. You hear the whole clip of Robach, who's an anchor at ABC News, laying it all out, saying that they had everything they needed. They had everything that they needed about the Epstein case to run with it. Why didn't they run with it? I mean, I think the biggest reason, they brought up the royal family. Okay. But Clinton's definitely in there. And you'll notice how they tried for a little while to make it seem like Donald Trump was very much tied to the Epstein thing, too. Donald Trump is the only person of all the people that were hanging out in these elite circles of the ultra-wealthy in Palm Beach, the only person who, as a matter of record, took action against Epstein for being scum, kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago forever for hitting on a young girl, an underage girl at the club. Said, you're out of here. That's Donald Trump. Meanwhile, you look at these other characters, these other individuals that have been tied into this, and I mean, Prince Andrew, someone needs to explain to me why a guy his age has his arm around a 15 or 16-year-old girl who's not a family member at a party. I think that's a very valid question to ask, isn't it? And by the way, who also has on the record said that he sexually abused her. And so, but I just mean from the evidence presented, there would be some immediate questions. So why didn't ABC News run with the story? Oh, they said it didn't meet their editorial standards. Oh, you mean like the editorial standards that led them to put Julie Swetnick on TV? You remember Julie Swetnick? You see, the frenzied and hysterical libs were so desperate to destroy Supreme Court Justice, now Supreme Court Justice, then nominee, Kavanaugh, and to put the ultimate sleazy ambulance chaser, Michael Avenatti, on air along with her, on air with her, that they put a person on TV who, it was apparent in the interviews, has emotional problems. I mean, is a person that needs help. They put a person on TV at ABC News while a Supreme Court justice was fighting for his reputation, really for his life in a sense. And they put a person on TV who said that he was at gang rape parties in high school that no one else had ever heard of, no one else could corroborate, she could give no details of, but that young boys, high school boys, from elite prep schools in the D.C. area were 10 guys at a time having sex with drugged young women. And nobody called the police, and nobody filed a police report, and nobody complained about this. She went on TV and said this. And then people said, well, hold on a second. Where was this occurring? And you were in college. So you were a college-age one. I just want to back up to how crazy Swetnick really was, because ABC News put her on air. So you're a college-age woman. You're going to parties, I assume house parties, and there are young girls who you know are being drugged. Remember, she accused Kavanaugh of putting roofies at one point. I think that was under part of her sworn indictment. And then she retracted that. But you're saying that there's a party and that people are being drugged and raped in large numbers. You didn't tell anybody? Well, remember, think about the difference in a college student and a high school student. You're so afraid the high school kids will be mad at you, so you wouldn't go to the police. I mean, this is absurd. This is space aliens landed and replaced Donald Trump with the Lizard King. We just haven't figured it out yet. That's how crazy it is. Really. ABC News put her on air. ABC News ran with the story. I guess those editorial standards, they seem very malleable depending on what the politics may be at any point in time. And then let's get into the broader media. Remember, media and politics so tied together. How do we know about what's happening anywhere in the country about any politician, any political issue? Are you everywhere? No, of course not. You have to rely on the media to present facts and information. Politicians rely on the media to be the ones that are supposed to be educating us about what's happening so that we can make informed decisions about who to vote for. So these two things are inextricably linked. I saw this in the Washington Examiner this morning. I'm assuming it's still true. This was as of this morning. That after Project Veritas I've been critical of Project Veritas. I think it's an organization that does some very important work. Some of the videos, getting some low-level person at CNN to say, yeah, we don't like conservatives. No, duh. We kind of know that. It's not really, and that gets people in trouble. And I don't like people being kicked out of their jobs for having what they think are conversations with somebody that's a friend or an ally. I don't really like that. I know there's judgment involved. This, though, what they have here about Robach at ABC, this is a story. This is a big story. This matters, especially in an era where you have NBC News still scrambling to really actually delaying more than scrambling, just hoping that this whole thing will pass because Matt Lauer's a predator. They knew it. The guy was using his power and influence for women that he had power of hiring and firing. That's a huge distinction, very important one. And some women have claimed that he even violated them in a way that would have been criminal. And they just didn't care. They just didn't care. I mean, it's so easy to turn a blind eye. What do you really know? I wasn't there. You could always say that. Oh, I don't know. I didn't see it happen. I'm not an eyewitness. Matt's ratings are great. We got to keep him in place. All these guys, they're all just sort of friends. It's all little cabals of media execs and anchors at the tops of these places who all take care of each other because they're all actually deeply replaceable, easily replaceable. But the people that are high up like the other people that are high up to like them, and they just want to maintain their, dare I say, power and privilege. This was amazing. The Washington Examiner this morning. Fox is the only cable network so far. You've had nothing on CNN, nothing on MSNBC, and I believe nothing on, certainly on, let me see, CNN, MSNBC, NBC News, and CBS News as well. Let's want to make sure. Have not covered anything about ABC clearly squashing the story about Epstein when they had on-the-record testimony from young girls. I ask you this question. If ABC News, a huge, what is it? ABC is like owned by Disney, it's a huge conglomerate, huge corporations. People are paid so much money. If ABC News is not willing to speak truth to power about a near billionaire running an international pedophile ring with ties to some of the most powerful people in the world, when they have young women who have come forward on the record with photographic evidence and testimony, sworn testimony about what happened, if ABC News won't speak truth to power, then when does ABC News speak truth to power? Give me one instance. And no, writing another hit piece about Donald Trump and the emolument clause doesn't count. Journalists, overwhelmingly, are not brave. They are selfish, they are self-interested, they are venal. Unfortunately, and I'm in this business in some capacity, I can tell you, most of them are folks that you wouldn't want to spend a lot of time around, especially the ones that are on TV a lot. Speak truth to power, quite the opposite. They do power's bidding and then have the gall to look at the American people and say, oh, we're here to protect your interests and just speak the truth. Propagandists, my friends. Liberal ones, of course. I also wanted to follow up on the story of the massacre of that Mormon family in Mexico yesterday. I was doing more and more research and reading on it. I did see today I think it was a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, DAS, as we would call them. I did see one go on TV. He seemed like a very knowledgeable guy, but he said that it still was credible that this was mistaken identity. I stick by what I said initially. It's not credible to me at all that this is mistaken identity. The cartels took some of these people hostage. And in fact, there was an arrest made near the U.S.-Mexico border where one of the suspected gunmen, they seized, he was in an armored car, and they seized him, and I believe he had a hostage with him. So they knew, I believe they knew exactly who they were attacking. And if you go back and look at the history of this particular Mormon family, they have been, had friction with the cartels for a long time and have armed themselves up. So interesting how little the media pays attention to this. Mexico is a cauldron of violence right now, and Mexican gun laws are strict. It's really, you're not allowed to have guns in Mexico as a law-abiding citizen. Doesn't seem to slow the cartels down very much, though, does it? They don't seem scared by that. But let's say you live in outlying areas of Sonora, if you live in the desert, and you want to defend yourself and your family. This family that has been attacked here, for years they've been complaining about how the only way that they could do it, the only way that they would be able to defend themselves against the cartels, is to illegally get guns from the United States to traffic them in. So I think that this was a hit. I think this was an assassination against this family. And, it could be the Sinaloa cartel. It could be some local guy who's trying to make more of a name for himself. But I was surprised to hear, first of all, the Mexican security official who said that maybe they were mistaken for a rival gang. the cars are full of women and children. They knew that. They were executing them when they were making a run for their lives. All right, I think that Mexico has realized what a big problem this is, and has not yet come to grips with the fact that Americans are going to want some payback here. This is not a status quo that can continue. Also interesting when you read about this, the price of heroin has in the last year or so. And I try to follow the drug war issue as closely as I can. Price of heroin has dropped considerably. There's much less demand for heroin. You know what they want on the streets? Opioids. And not only that, opioids are easier to smuggle into the United States, easier to make, cheaper to make. You don't have to grow opioids. It's a simple, I believe, for example, fentanyl is either a 3 or a 4-step chemical process. It is not complicated if you have the right precursors. The cartels are making these precursors in industrial quantities, and in fact are making fake OxyContin. So there's the maker of OxyContin, and then there's the Mexican drug cartels pretending that what they are selling on the streets is in fact pharmaceutical-grade OxyContin. I was looking at this and saying, well, hold on a moment. If that's the case, how do we even know how many of the overdoses, let's say in the last year, that are we think they're from opioids, and we keep blaming and look, pharmaceutical companies deserve blame, make no mistake about it. But how much of the blame? How much of the blame versus the drug cartels that have foot soldiers in every major American city, and in fact in really every city worthy of the name in the country? They have distribution networks all over the place. How much of what we currently are assessing when someone goes into an ER or someone is found dead at the scene, and they have a bottle or they have a bag, let's say, of some pills that look like OxyContin, made to look like OxyContin on purpose by the cartels, how many of them are really the pharmaceutical grade versus what's being made in vats in industrial facilities south of the border in places like Sonora, brought into the United States in a very porous border, by the way, across a porous border, and leveraging the mass illegal immigration that continues to happen in this country. I think we need answers to these questions because there are quite literally tens of thousands of lives that depend on it. And I have to wonder if we do see a change from the Lopez Obrador regime where they say they're going to start going after the cartels, this could turn into what it was 10 years ago, where the cartels just go ultra-violent, and they're more powerful and richer now than they were then. This could turn into a failed state on our southern border much more rapidly than I think most people realize. And the media, for all kinds of political reasons, always wants to downplay the risks to us of the dysfunction in Mexico. Kamala Harris is still running for president, in case you didn't know, even though in her home state of California, she is, in most polls that I've seen, running behind Andrew Yang. So she has dramatically underperformed by the numbers in her campaign. But we are told today that Kamala Harris has a new plan out there, a plan that will lengthen the school day so that it is not going to stop until adults stop working. Now, this seems like a minor thing, but this is actually very important, and it gets into some more complicated and difficult issues. Currently, the school day runs in most places 8 to 3 p.m. And for about 3 out of 4 parents, they don't end their job at 3 p.m., so this creates a problem. Who takes care of the kids after school? And so what is the proposal now? Okay, let's extend the school day to 6 p.m. every day. This tells you something. First of all, that the Democrats, in many ways, and they will not admit to this, view school as essentially a taxpayer-funded, public school as a taxpayer-funded babysitting program. It's really childcare through early adulthood so that parents can go and do whatever jobs they're doing. Now, that's not That's not inherently a bad thing. It's just a question of what really is the mission of the school supposed to be, though. Is the mission of the school to make sure that children are in the best possible environment for learning and to equip them for their futures, or is it to make sure that they're not getting into trouble and have something to do from the hours of 8 a.m. to now would be 6 p.m. By the way, that's a very long school day. All right, what else comes into this? By the way, this proposal is going to get a lot of attention. This is an interesting idea because of what it brings together. All right, let's also look at what this would mean for teachers. More hours, you know what that's going to mean? More pay. More teachers getting more pay. You know what that means? More votes for Democrats. So, and maybe even more hiring. Making the school day longer will be an excuse, I'm sure, to say we need teachers to work perhaps even in shifts. It's not enough to have 3 or 4 months off a year. I know I always hear about the lessons. Oh, the teachers have the lessons, and right, okay, whatever. I'm not saying teachers don't do their lessons, but I have friends who are teachers. They have summers off. I don't have summers off. Let's just call things what they are, okay? I just work on my lesson plan the whole summer. Oh yeah, no time at the beach. Only, I know others take jobs and they have to do things to make ends. I'm not saying teachers are living the high life all the time, but it's not. The narrative around public school teachers is always like, oh my gosh, they're holding our country together by the skin of their teeth and preparing the future generations, and they're all so underpaid and they all work so hard. I know there's a lot of bad teachers too, folks. It's a huge system, right? It's a huge, huge jobs program. And yes, it is in fact a sector of socialism in our economy. Yes, it is central planning, and that's why there's nothing but failure, but there tends to be a legacy of failure in that. But all right, so you're going to have longer days. You're going to have people who are getting additional hours, more pay. Means taxpayers have to pick up an even bigger tab. Fine. But here's what is really at issue, I think, here, or what we should start to look at as the issue. One is that you need to have, in a lot of places, for what's considered this is where you get into the two income trap. You have to have two people working. The system used to be based on the idea that you would have a parent working and a parent taking care of the home, right? Generally, not always, generally it was back in the day. I'm just saying what it was. No one get mad at me. Generally, it was a father who was working and a mother who was more likely to be taking care of things at home. Okay. Now that's changed, and I get it. I'm a modern man. I understand. Now we've got more women graduating from college than men. We've got women all over the workforce. That's fine. That's good. But I said, the system was set up with that in mind. But there's an even bigger problem. You could say, well, okay, you've got two parents now who are going to be working, but is there any flexibility within the schedules? And well, then you get to what about the very high proportion of single-parent households, and particularly in poor and in many cases in poor and minority communities across the country. The school, in this case, in this instance, is being asked to carry a very heavy load, not just of education, but also really partial child rearing by keeping somebody in the school for the duration of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I mean, that's because in many cases, if you only have one parent who's, and look, I'm not putting anyone down who's trying to put food on the table and take care of their kid and do the right thing, but socially, if we're going to look at what's happening in the country, when you have so many single-parent households out there, the burden on the schools, and this has been told to me by teachers. A lot of teachers have told me that for the kids, they're the part of the day that is structured. Just being in the school is the part of the day where they know they're safe, there's structure, there's something for them to do, and if they can get them to learn some stuff too, that's kind of bonus. I'm talking about it. Look, there are public schools I know where they've got Olympic swimming pools and everybody's walking around, playing Mozart quintets, and I get it. But I'm talking about the schools that need help. I'm talking about the people because those are also the schools I would note where, they'll have a nanny come pick the kids up, even though it's a public school. Like, they'll have someone to help out. And, this is where we see the big shift in our society toward two parents both working and and the big shift toward single-parent households as well. And that puts additional stresses on the school system. What we really would want is an economy that is geared toward one person working. And what we also want, because it's better, look, all the social science, everything, and not that I really believe social science is usually scientific, but all the studies, all the data shows that it is an advantage, shall we say, to come from a two-parent household. That's just, and that makes sense, right? It's an advantage. It is better for the children when possible for that to be the case. Well, it's also better to be rich, right? There are a lot of things that are better, but let's just all understand that it is generally going to be easier and more advantageous for a child in a two-parent household. Okay. And then I get to one other part of this, which is maybe just a little bit specific to my thinking on this issue, but I don't think that kids should be getting woken up every morning at whatever it is, 6:30, 7 a.m. and being rushed off to school at 8 o'clock in the morning. They've done studies, and I mean scientific studies, where kids need more sleep. I was exhausted through high school. Exhausted all the time. I just remember I was just, always trying to stay awake in the morning. I'm not a morning person still to this day, which is why it was amazing that I worked at The Hill and did that morning show for over a year. Not a morning person. That is also a thing, by the way. Some people's circadian rhythms, and I'm a guy who wakes up in the morning, and I'm almost as grouchy in the morning as producer Mark is all the time. Which is, by the way,
when did this start? Why am I grouchy?
I don't know, because you're the one that tells me that I'm wrong about things.
I mean, you are.
Well, see, this is why he's grouchy. So I just believe in the change in the school system, or rather, I believe that there should be a change in the system. We've already put kids in school early. It's not because they need to be getting there so early. It's because the parents have to get to work early. So we're already doing it at that, and now we're going to start doing it again at the other end. We say, okay, well, now we're also going to make it so that we have childcare for kids until 6 p.m. That's a very long school day. And you have to ask the question, is this for the benefit of the children, or is this for the benefit of adults? Schools should be run for the benefit of the kids, not the adults who are paid to be there, and not just for the adults who want to send their kids there either. It's for the kids. What's best for the children? That should be the focus. Teachers' unions, and they're always, what's best for kids? It's always what's best for kids. That's what they say. It's never what's best for the kids. All I ever hear from teachers' union representatives, and I've interviewed some of them, all I ever hear from them is, we're just concerned with teaching. We're just doing what's best for the children, but we need our, local union, blah, 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 to have better health benefits. And, we need more OT. And I understand the scam. I know what's going on here. I understand how this works. And they also want, first in, first out, and make it really hard to fire. I mean, in New York City, they had I think they called it the rubber room, or the waiting room, or the something, where they would just put teachers that were on probation, not allowed to teach, but couldn't be fired. They had people that were showing up every day for hours. They have to sit there. They get their full paycheck. They don't do anything. Sit in a room. That's what teachers' unions give you, folks. So they can tell you, and we spend more and more money, and educational outcomes are not getting any better. More money, educational outcomes stay the same. Because there's also a part of education that is reliant on the kids, the families, the communities. You can put people in a building staffed with nothing but Albert Einsteins to teach all day long. If you have kids showing up who haven't gotten enough sleep, who haven't had a good meal, who have tremendous stress at home, who aren't being supported, who aren't, people don't want to talk about this. That I would say, and I have friends who are on the left and the right of the teaching issue, anybody who knows anything agrees that if you show up and everything that's happened before that kid is in school is problematic, or there's a lot of trouble, your chances of successful education are very small. It doesn't matter what you do. It's very small. It's going to be really, really hard, which is why you also have this. This is where the fight then between public schools and charter schools comes in, because some of these charter schools insist on parental involvement and parental buy-in for this educational process. A lot of parents don't want to be told that they have a role to play here. A lot of parents want to be told, yeah, I drop my kid off. I take the kid when he comes or when he or she comes home, and that's it. The rest of it's on the state, on the government to figure out. It's not a recipe for success. We've seen this play out for decades now. It doesn't work that way. Parents have to be told that they have to be involved in the education process. I don't mean doing the homework for the kids, but I mean making sure that they are encouraging students to learn, to do their homework, to read, to be respectful to teachers, to behave. This all has to come from parents. We keep pretending that we're gonna have a system that is put in place by the federal government, the central planners in D.C., where there's still the Department of Education policy is still very top down in a lot of ways. They're going to come up with a way to deal with all the societal problems that manifest themselves in the classroom when students show up and have not been encouraged properly, have not been supported. Parents are the single, look, especially in early education, parents are the single biggest factor. It's just find me any study, you'll see that. Oh, but teachers just want to teach. I hear all the teaching union president talking points all the time. It really kind of makes me want to throw up sometimes. I've heard enough from them. I'd rather have people who actually care about what's going on in the classroom. And Kamala Harris, she's famous. I forgot to even throw this in. She's famous for wanting to lock parents up for the truancy of their kids. So maybe now there'll be a whole surge of truancy lockups that will happen. I don't know. We'll have to see how that shakes out. She's still not going to win the presidency or the nomination, but it is an interesting idea. All right, so I watched the first episode of Jack Ryan season 2. Season 1 had some pretty good moments, and I liked, it was season 1. I told you I liked season 1. Okay, I'm not gonna rewrite history here. I liked season 1. There was some stuff that was very Hollywood, and they got, but I understand it's never gonna be. I'm not looking for. If they made a documentary of the CIA, it would be a lot of people walking around holding papers in their hands with a cup of coffee, being like, "Is the meeting in this room or is it in the other room? Oh, is there a meeting in here or is the meeting in there? Okay, who's running this meeting?" That would be the life and times of the CIA operative, right? Right around. Wow, are we breaking for lunch now, or did someone bring lunch in, or we have to go? Oh, okay. Or where's the meeting? That's what the CIA is really like most of the time. I know, I hate to break it to you, but I understand that's not going to make for an interesting show. Although you could do The Office, like the funny show with Steve Carell, The Office, in the CIA, and it would be amazing, by the way. But the Jack Ryan show is the second season so far. I've only seen one episode. It's bad. It's bad. I wish it weren't. I watched the first episode. I thought to myself, and I know some of you say, well, I hate everything. It's not true. I don't hate everything. Producer Mark hates more than I do. Well, actually, he loves sports and I don't, so there's probably some lack of truth to that. I mean professional sports or college sports. The truth about watching the second season of Jack Ryan is that, first of all, they flip around. Venezuela is the center of this, I can already tell. And they take the reality of Venezuela, which is a country with a lot of problems, and they make it about a right-wing nationalist. That's what's gone wrong in Venezuela. And there's a social justice teacher, of course, who's running against him, who's the heroine in this, the protagonist. So why can't we just have a leftist Marxist who's ruined a country that's very, very wealthy? Why can't we just have that? Why do we have to have this shift? Is there a reason for it? Oh, well, we know the reason is that the woke crowd, the leftists that Hollywood wants to appeal to, they don't want a depiction in pop culture of what happens when you run an economy based on social justice principles, which is what Maduro and Chavez before him did in Venezuela and destroyed the country. It was all about justice for the poor, redistributing wealth, sticking it to corporations, sticking it to rich people. That was the whole thing. So you have the political aspect of it. But then, for my money, the even more unforgivable stuff, why don't they, reach out to me or somebody who actually has worked in these places, and we'll tell you a little bit about just how people speak and what rings true, what can be credible in a fictional world. But they just got a lot of the stuff wrong. I mean, Jack Ryan finds some young woman in a bar and brings her up to his room, and he has classified stuff in his hotel room. I mean, it's not even tradecraft. It's like, is he a moron? And then the worst part was they basically rip off the ambush scene from Clear and Present Danger, which is actually a pretty watchable Harrison Ford, where he plays Jack Ryan, Harrison Ford movie back in the 90s. The Clear and Present Danger version of the ambush, and it's like the same thing, was 10 times better than the ambush scene that's done by Amazon in this show. You have to wonder, why? They couldn't have made this a cooler ambush scene? I mean, just put them side by side. It's the same sequence, basically. I'm giving stuff away, but you can see the ambush thing coming like half the episode. You're like, what? So I'll have more updates for you as we go along, but very disappointed right now in Amazon Jack Ryan Season 2. And I actually like John Krasinski. I think he's a good actor. Probably terrible politics, but a good actor.